Hello and welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Yeshi. Here are the headlines. Political crisis deepens in Nepal as President dissolves lower house of the parliament. Opposition terms it unconstitutional. Unprecedented protests erupt over mysterious death of Baloch rights activist Karima Baloch. And people in India celebrate Christmas amid pandemic. Let's begin the show. Nepal has plunged into deep political crisis after President Bidya Devi Bhandari, on recommendation of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, dissolved the lower house of the parliament, a move that has drawn widespread criticism, with opposition terming it illegitimate and unconstitutional. And now, when the opposition is demanding a rollback, Oli is all prepared to launch his campaign for snap polls, which under the current scenario are expected to be scheduled in April and May next year. Our report.
In a shocking wind-up to the months of internal rifts within the ruling Communist Party of Nepal, the lower house of parliament was dissolved on the recommendation of Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli on 20th December. Various reports that were later confirmed by a cabinet minister himself suggested that Oli took the hasty decision to prevent a no-confidence motion that was being planned by the faction loyal to Pushpa Kamal Dahal, a former PM who has now been appointed the parliamentary leader of the Communist Party.
सरकारले के चाहिँ त्यस्तो नराम्रो काम गरेको थियो जसले गर्दा एकदम एका बिहानै दौड गरेर एउटा प्रयोजनको निम्ति गरिएको हस्ताक्षरलाई कपी पेस्ट गरेर टाँसेर अविश्वासको प्रस्तावको लिखत तयार गर्नुपर्ने कारण के थियो?
President has also announced that general elections would be held in April and May, more than a year ahead of the schedule. Under the current scenario, neither of Oli or Dahal is in a position to form the government on his own. Prime Minister Oli, who according to many observers has made a calculated move by taking such a decision, is already asking his party leaders to mobilize the workers. Oli's party had emerged as the single largest party in 2017 with a little over 3.1 million popular votes. And analysts say that it won't be making much gain even if its popularity hasn't declined. But in spite of several socio-economic and development factors playing a key role in the elections, Oli believes that he can secure majority on his own.
चुनावमा हामीले कम्तीमा 50 लाख लोकप्रिय भोट 50 लाख लोकप्रिय भोट ल्याउनु पर्नेछ। समानुपातिकमा गिन्ती हुन्छ त्यो 50 लाख कमसेकम हामीले भोट ल्याउनु र हामीले दुई पार्टी मिलेर 116 सिटमा जितेका थियौं। 116 सिटमा जितेका थियौं भने अहिले त्यसमा 4 सिट थप्नु पर्नेछ। 120 सिट जित्नु पर्नेछ।
The opposition parties in Nepal that have been protesting against the government for not being proactive enough even during the pandemic have cried foul and called it an unconstitutional move. They have sought immediate restoration of pre-dissolution time. However, it appears uncertain. The Supreme Court has sent the matter to the Constitutional Bench, which will only be delivering its verdict after a few weeks. People of the country who are bound to suffer said that the ruling party should have tried out other political combinations to run the country instead of calling an untimely election when its tourism-dependent economy has been battered by the pandemic.
We are now joined by Samantha Dahal, an advocate who will tell us about the legal aspects attached with the dissolution. What constitutional provision do we have about recommendation of Prime Minister to dissolve the Parliament?
To get into the depth of this dissolution exercise that the current Prime Minister and the President has taken, we need to first of all understand the practice and convention of House dissolution. In the parliamentary form of government, which follows the Westminster Convention, dissolution of the House of Representatives by the Prime Minister is often considered to be an integral part of an integral power of Prime Minister's prerogative exercise of power. Moreover, this prerogative power that the Prime Minister can exercise to dissolve the Parliament is often declared to be unfettered if the Prime Minister is representing the majority party in the Parliament, regardless the size of the majority. A minority Prime Minister, on the other hand, if the government is led by a minority leader of the Parliament, in that case, on the other hand, the power is not considered absolute, and there are some control and limit on which by when a minority leader who is a Prime Minister can exercise the power. So, for example, if there is a possibility of an alternative government that can be formed within the Parliament, then a House dissolution decision or recommendation cannot be taken.
Moving on, massive protests have erupted against Pakistan establishment over the mysterious death which the protesters call a state killing of Baloch rights activist and a pioneer of women's rights in Balochistan, Karima Baloch. Karima, who was living in exile in Canada for over 4 years, had gone missing on 20th December and was found dead the next day in a canal in Toronto.
ये जो दहशतगर्दी है इसके पीछे वर्दी है ये जो दहशतगर्दी है इसके पीछे वर्दी है
Carrying pictures of Karima Baloch and floats accusing Pakistan establishment of sponsoring her murder in Canada, tens of thousands of demonstrating Balochs are in a state of shock and grief. They say Karima's loss is no short of a devastation in their lives. They have now urged an immediate United Nations intervention into what they call a killing at the behest of Islamabad. Rights activists and observers say that this case is no more of a pattern that involves mysterious deaths of Pakistani dissidents who become a challenge to Islamabad's unbridled human rights violations. And Karima wasn't the first. The ISI and Pakistan Army are accused of eliminating several human rights activists in the past. Sajid Hussain, a Baloch journalist, was found dead earlier this year in similar circumstances in Sweden.
The cold-blooded murder of Baloch leader Banu Karima Baloch is totally unacceptable for Baloch people. It is matter of grave concerns for us that Baloch activists who are not safe in Balochistan and to raise their voice if they leave the country, the ISI goons, their assassins, their target killers, they chase us. They have chased Balochs in Kandahar. You have heard about Gulbahar Bukti and his son. Before that, many Baloch refugees in Afghanistan are target killed. And you have heard about Sajid Hussain. He was an eminent journalist and he was killed mysteriously. Till now, we don't know what happened.
Karima's speeches and appeals had not only resonated with discriminated and deprived Balochs, but she had become a prominent face in the international allies while leading the Baloch movement at the United Nations. Once hailed by BBC as one of the most influential women on earth, Karima was a pioneer of women's rights too. She was a fearless critic of Pakistan establishment and its army. She had also raised apprehensions over a large number of retired Pakistanis settling in Canada. The Canadian police, without really doing a thorough investigation, has ruled out a foul play in her death. Observers have raised doubts on intentions. Amnesty International have sought an effective probe.
A thorough investigation! Investigate!
Exiled Balochs in European American countries say they have grown fearful of these systematic attacks and the governments must protect them.
We want justice! We want justice! We want justice!
There must be a thorough investigation, because this is something that creating fear among the Baloch diaspora for their safety and security. Because the Baloch, they fled their country to be secure in West and to raise their voice against the injustices that are happening in Balochistan with their people. But now, since the Baloch have become victim of extrajudicial abduction and killing in Western countries like Sweden and Canada, that raises serious concerns.
The Balochs in Pakistan are anyway considered second-class citizens. Over the years, Islamabad has systematically exploited the region of its vast minerals and resources. The locals never receive their due. Those who dared to speak against the wrong were silenced. A crackdown was launched against the political activists, prompting many to flee the country and take refuge in West. Those who couldn't escape were subjected to barbarity.
Justice for! Justice for!
Today, Balochistan finds itself among the region with highest number of enforced disappearances. Even the women and children have not been spared. Only those who have fallen in line with Islamabad's oppressive rule are not harmed. Those who have dared to speak have been tortured, imprisoned, or have met the fate similar to Karima Baloch.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in a segment called Asia Watch.
The logistic demand in China continued to improve in the first 11 months of this year, showing a strong market validity according to the latest data released by the China Federation of Logistics and Purchasing. The total value of social logistics in the first 11 months was 266.2 trillion yuan, about 40.7 trillion US dollars, an increase of 3% year-on-year, and the growth rate went up to 0.5 percentage points compared with the figure in the first 10 months. The industrial logistic demand saw a steady growth, and the demand for import logistics maintained a relatively fast growth momentum. Generally, the logistic demand for people's livelihood consumption steadily recovered. From January to November, the total volume of logistics for institutions and residents increased by 13.9% year-on-year, with a growth rate going up by 0.1 percentage points compared with the figure in the first 10 months. And it remained above 10% for 6 consecutive months. The scale of industrial goods logistics were in accelerated recovery, and the growth rate accelerated for 3 consecutive months. The manufacturing logistic demand rose steadily, with the growth rate reaching the highest point since April 2019. In the meantime, driven by growing domestic demand and the adoption of preferential policies, the import volume grew well, and the related logistic demand continued to improve. Harley-Davidson bikers dressed in Santa Claus costume rode through the streets of central Tokyo for their annual parade against child abuse, saying more children were vulnerable in 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic. The parade, followed by a toy run to donate toys to kids, is a global tradition around Christmas time. In Tokyo, the event is held by members of the Harley Santa Club, founded in 2008. The number of child abuse cases in Japan per month rose up to 20% between January and March versus the same period last year, as more families spend time at home because of the pandemic. The number of reported child abuse cases was recorded high last year, according to the Health Ministry. Normally, hundreds of motorcyclists take part in the parade, but because of coronavirus, only about 100 rode this year. Still, riders proudly roar their engine to bring Christmas joy to kids living in children's homes. Riders plan to visit 4 homes in Tokyo this year to donate toys and candy to about 400 children. Chinese companies are gearing up for mass production of glass vials for COVID-19 vaccines to help end the pandemic. In southwest China, Chongqing fine-tuned machines in their workshops are transforming glass tubes into vials. The production line has been modified to make glass containers for COVID-19 vaccines. The company is one of the largest providers of glass medicine containers in China. It has an annual production capacity of 2 billion neural borosilicate glass vials. Vaccine vials are usually made of borosilicate glass due to its resistance to external chemicals. While most of the vials are imported from foreign countries like Germany and Japan, nowadays companies in China are setting up their own melting furnaces to ensure a steady vaccine supply chain. The Zhenshuang pharmaceutical packaging company, which has been listed on the A-share market, fired up its melting furnace in November. It is expected that the company will produce neutral borosilicate glass tube by the end of the year. China has some 60 glass medicine container providers. Shandong Pharmaceutical Glass in East China's Shandong province is another leading glass medicine package manufacturer. It can produce some 200 million molded serum vials and nearly 700 million tube-type bottles each year.
India is doubling down on its efforts to store and distribute vaccines whenever they are out. The government has also agreed for emergency authorization to US vaccine candidates like Pfizer and Moderna, and it will be rolling out these vaccines in any week of January. Country's indigenous and reasonable candidate Covaxin is in final stage, and units across the country are working tirelessly to enhance their storage capacity.
Hospitals in Indian capital New Delhi are making arrangements for storage of coronavirus vaccine by installing freezers and setting up cold chain equipment. Over 100 freezers have been brought to Rajiv Gandhi Super Speciality Hospital. The country is making robust supply chain arrangements to ensure that the doses of the coronavirus vaccine reach its 1.3 billion people. India's largest airport plans to start distributing COVID-19 vaccines in January with up to 5.4 million vials a day.
Minus 70 degree, we don't have any facility. However, if you go through the literature, even at Pfizer website, then it can be stocked with dry ice for 30 days and at 2 to 8 degrees C for 5 days. So total 35 days is available for redistribution, which should be sufficient. So we are definitely geared up for that.
The Indian government is considering emergency use authorization for 3 vaccine candidates, one from AstraZeneca, another from Pfizer, and a separate one developed by the Indian firm Bharat Biotech. Hyderabad-based Bharat Biotech is developing Covaxin with the government-run Indian Council of Medical Research, which is the country's first indigenously developed vaccine candidate. The government says it will roll out the vaccine only after it is found safe. The dates could be any week in the month of January.
कि शायद जनवरी के महीने में भी कभी किसी भी स्टेज पे किसी भी सप्ताह में ऐसा समय आ सकता है जब हम भारत के लोगों को पहला जो वैक्सीन का शॉट है वो देने की स्थिति में आ जाए.
While India is second most hit country due to coronavirus, it has successfully contained the spread in past few weeks. From a daily count of nearly 100,000 positives, the country's everyday infections have come down below 30,000. Meanwhile, the authorities have announced a suspension of all flights originating from the United Kingdom to the country until the end of the year, amid growing global concerns over a highly infectious new strain of the coronavirus. India plans to track down everyone arriving from Britain over the past month, hoping to stop a more infectious strain of the coronavirus detected there, spreading in a country battling the world's second highest COVID-19 tally.
Festivals in India are an occasion to celebrate and mingle with friends and family members. Christmas was celebrated in India with religious fervour amid the coronavirus pandemic. Let's take a look at the celebrations.
It's a festive season. Shops and markets across India are decked up to celebrate Christmas, the birth of Jesus Christ, and New Year. Celebrations in India are marked by glittery street decorations, exchange of gifts, cakes, and Christmas carols. Due to the coronavirus pandemic, the celebration this year were a low-key affair with adherence to all the social distancing norms and to prevent the spread of the virus.
I'm very happy to see all the people like from different communities, from different backgrounds, but still we are celebrating Christmas in very peacefully manner, in very harmony.
In Northeast India, churches were decorated to celebrate the festival, but the entry was restricted inside the churches due to the pandemic. The whole setup of Jesus Christ's birth was created and decorated beautifully with stars, lights, bells, and Christmas trees.
I take this opportunity to wish all the viewers a very happy Christmas. And as you all know that Christmas is the commemoration of the birth of Jesus in this world. And he had everything in heaven, but obeying the Father's command, he chose to be born amidst us. And now we call that Jesus is a God who chose to be born amidst us.
People get together and spend quality time with their family members.
The preparation this year, I could say, yes, the mood is on, but it is still less than last year. The crowd what we find in this market is comparatively less as from last year.
In Bangalore city of South India, a 10-day cake exhibition is being organized as part of Christmas celebrations. The event showcased varieties of cakes in various shapes and themes.
It's too beautiful. They fall too much to work. All the cakes. I like here a Doraemon cake. And after Corona, we came here. We didn't went to any events. Very happy to tell this. They did a good.
Though the festival of Christmas comes to an end, New Year celebrations are continuing in India and the rest of the world.
It's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We will be back next week at the same time. This is Yeshi signing off on behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.